evening, guys. Welcome to Saturday night. It's Saturday night. Pontific Change. Hope you guys are all doing great. Make sure that you do smash that like button. And my apologies for starting. Well, I mean, I guess technically it's 10 minutes late. I was not late because I was late. I had a technical problem with my audio and video, so I had to reset my entire system. But I figured it out on my own. I was going to have to figure it out on my own because on Saturdays, I actually produce our live stream on my own. Jen does help out in the background, but Colin does not produce our shows on Saturday. So if I wasn't able to figure this out, that really would have sucked. So, Jen, thank you for confirming that my audio and video was off and that I needed to fix it. I mean, initially, I wasn't sure because when the video wasn't working, I was actually going to start this anyway, thinking, all right, well, I won't be able to do an HD video. I'll just have to use the regular camera that's on my laptop. But it's a good thing I checked in with Jen because she couldn't hear me. And so it's a good thing I pulled back, went back, started it again. And so good to be with you guys. I'm sure you'll all make a few smart ass comments in the chat about my tardiness. But like I said, I appreciate you all being here. Smash that like button. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling. I hope all is going well, as I mentioned. All is not going well, unfortunately, for the IDF. Now, if you guys checked out the post that I put out earlier today, and of course I was going to get into this right at the top because I think it's very important. The IOF, excuse me, let's get that right. So I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard about this no longer with us individual. The guy's name is of Greek extraction, interestingly enough, Tomas Adzagauskas. He is now a former IDF soldier and formerly with us. Individual. And what is most interesting about this particular story is that there has been a substantial spike over the past 2 years, no surprise, in terms of suicidal attempts amongst IOF, as Jen wants me to refer to them, soldiers. As many as 300. Again, that's not really saying much considering that they've probably mass murdered over 500,000 to 750,000 Palestinian people, at least half of them being children. Some of them just can't take it. And that's unfortunate. And as much as I would like to say that I feel bad for somebody who decides, or excuse me, Tomas is of Lithuanian extraction, not Greek. My apologies for that. It sounds like a very Greek name, but it isn't. And so a few little interesting tidbits about this particular man, and I'm just going to pull up this screenshot so you all can see. This will really give you a good idea of what's been going on in the minds of these mass murderers, because some of them simply can't live with their indiscretions. And so in the case of Tomas Adzagauskas, put this together by Zaid Akhtar. So if you can just see this writing, I'm going to read it to you guys, but if you can see it. Israeli soldier commits suicide after partaking in Gaza genocide. Lithuanian Israeli soldier Tomas Adzagauskas, who took part in the genocide in Gaza, committed suicide after posting a message on social media saying, "I did things that cannot be forgiven." That is correct. October 7th, the date that ruined my life and destroyed everything I was. I can't anymore. I am ruin and devastation. I did things that cannot be forgiven. And I cannot live with it anymore. No one understands me anyway. There is a demon inside me that has been chasing me since 7/10. Please forgive me and remember that Tomas, who was an officer and a sniper commander, that Tomas died on the 7th. I am only a soul searching for peace. For 2 years now, I haven't been able to live with myself. 2,100 Israeli soldiers have attempted suicide since October 7th, 2023. 300 have succeeded. All right. Is that 14%? Guess it could be worse. Something very interesting about his statement that I think we should all be very keenly aware of. He says that his life was ruined on October 7th. Now, as a member of the IOF, why would October 7th have ruined his life? Notice something very interesting about this statement. He does not mention the Palestinian people once. I'm sure he mass murdered quite a few of them over the last 2 years. But what cannot be disputed here is that he's referring specifically to the actions he partook in on October 7th. And what does that lead one to believe? There's only one possibility, and only one. The Hannibal Directive is real, and the mass murder of the Palestinian people commenced in conjunction with the slaughtering of probably, I guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 800 to 1,000 Israelis were killed that day. Now, is it possible that he was responsible for killing several of those Israelis? Yeah, I would think that that's very likely. And then what you learn over time is that the Hannibal Directive was done at the behest of a tyrant president who is the biggest mass murderer that this world has seen since Mao Zedong. And so you really have to ask yourself, how do all the Israelis feel about their current predicament? Because it's only going to get worse. For the aristocrats, as we've pointed out, if you saw the clip that we dropped earlier regarding Michael Eisenberg, yeah, probably 800,000 Palestinians have now been mass murdered. And then, of course, you had Elon Carr, the oligarchs, the people that truly run this country, run this world. They don't give a damn. They have their ideology, but in the end, it's all about money and power. For those that are true believers of the Israel cause, as this Tomas apparently was, he didn't want to live with himself knowing that he was mass killing his own people, apparently. But it takes a certain level of sadistic behavior to carry out what they've carried out. That would make the Nazis blush. That would make any of the worst atrocities committed under Stalin or Mao Zedong blush. To the tragedies going on in Sudan, in Nigeria, Syria, Yemen, what they did to Libya. All of this comes home to roost. Afghanistan, Iraq. The Nazis learned from the US, and then the US learned from the Nazis during the Cold War. So it's not a surprise. This behavior is not unique. It's actually very common. When you have a genocidal ideology, expect the worst. And here is exactly why no one should shed a tear for this guy. I got to tell you, you look at these people and you would think, oh, yeah, absolutely. They have to be native to this part of the world. And the way that they just so gleefully terrorize and hurt these innocent people, these especially women and children, and they do it gleefully. And they're still doing it. And they think that this is a joke. And someone is asking, what was that? Well, it's a whole bunch of IOF soldiers having just terrorized a family in the West Bank. I don't know if they killed them, but I know that for them, they like to mock the other culture, pretend that this is all acceptable discourse. It's not. In fact, it's heinous behavior. the worst type of people do these things. And we, for the past 2 years, and obviously for the past 75, this is what we have been reduced to. We have to do everything in our capacity to break this unholy alliance, which is in direct correlation to this broken economic and political system with which we are being terrorized under every day of our lives. That is the mission of our channel. We do not have some hidden agenda. We're very crystal clear about what we're trying to do. We're trying to build as big a coalition as possible, and we will cross that Rubicon where we will go where we need to go and say the things that need to be said. Because let's be honest, there are several channels out there on both sides of the political spectrum, although I really can't say that it's one and the same, because as we know, the lines are being blurred every day in terms of what's left and right, what's red and blue. What we know that cannot be disputed, cannot be argued, is that these people are psychotic. Their whole ideology is psychotic. And I don't want anything to do with them. And as my trusty partner likes to say, they must be lanced off like a boil. And that ultimately means a revolution here in the United States. Now, it doesn't have to be bloody, but that revolution starts with the disintegration of the relationship between the US and Israel. We are them, they are us, but only at the top. It would appear that the overwhelming majority of the people of this country are not on board with this. Probably never were, but were more or less not as informed. Because as we know, there's a lot of gatekeepers out there that don't tell the full story about what's going on. They don't tell the full detail about what actually happened on October 7th and thereafter. The Zios are still lying about what happened on that day. They're not going to talk about the fact that the Hannibal Directive is real, that a lot of their soldiers are trying to basically off themselves. I always find it interesting when someone says they try to commit suicide and they fail. How do you fail exactly? I'm always curious as to how you fail at committing suicide. That's got to be very interesting to understand. I'm not fully buying into this. If you really want to end it, I believe you can end it. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. Now, you could argue, or as Jen points out, they don't really want to die. That's probably true too. I would say that that's definitely a distinction. I would say that some people say that they're going to commit suicide, but in reality, what they want is it's a cry for help. So I get that. People don't want to be stuck in these situations. Who would? The hard reality is that Zionists do not see themselves as anything but victims. That's all they see. Which is why when somebody like this, who was crying out at the very end before he decided it was time to go, he didn't make one mention at all of the genocide. This was basically a woe is me. Oh, feel bad for me. Feel bad that I have to kill myself because of what I did on October 7th. What, you mean following orders like a good Nazi? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Not what have we become? We have become everything that we swore that we would not. We became everything that supposedly our nation was not supposed to be about, but has always been. The lies, the propaganda, they couldn't see past it. He couldn't see past it. So here we are. So when Tomas Algauskis decides to commit suicide, I'm not going to encourage other people to go and do it, but I sure as hell am not going to feel bad that he did. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be, must be, shall be free. But there is a lot of people out there who do not want to see that happen. And as the tide keeps turning in the favor of the people who stand on the side of humanity, with the Palestinian people, amongst many others around the world, the collective efforts by the powers that be are ramping up to an 11 because they know that there is no other way to do this. The censorship at home is at a staggeringly high level now. But abroad, in Tel Aviv, there was a meeting this week that is not getting much coverage. It was the meeting of all of these Christian pastors. You know, we are very adamant on our channel about the staggering discrepancy between the amount of Jewish Zionists and Christian Zionists in the United States. The ratio is probably somewhere between 8 to 1 and 10 to 1. So it's pretty substantial. And so many of these Christian Zionist pastors, who we all know are just trying to be the next Ken Copeland or Joel Osteen or Pat Robertson, took the Aliyah trip to Israel on the dime of, well, you know, I always say we give the money to Israel and Israel then gives the money to the pastors, and the pastors play along. And so they decided to play along at this very interesting event that took place earlier this week. That, again, I don't know if anybody else is talking about it, but we're going to talk about it now.
Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
A partnership between Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Friends of Zion Museum led to the unprecedented visit.
It's the first time in history the State of Israel has officially partnered with 1,000 strategic pastors to commission them as ambassadors to combat anti-Semitism and reach the youth of their generation.
Now, I don't know if you guys know who Mike Evans is, and I didn't know who he was before I put this segment together. It turns out that his nickname is the Soul Snatcher of Long Island. So this guy is an evangelical preacher in Long Island, and he's been one for, I believe, over 50 years. And so this is a guy who has been notorious for a very long time of always trying to convert Jews to evangelical Christianity. And so it is of no surprise that this man works arm in arm as an acolyte of Mike Huckabee and put this get together on for over 1,000 pastors all throughout the United States. And you better believe that of the 1,000 pastors that were invited, there were probably maybe a couple thousand more that got invited but just couldn't work it into their schedule. But these guys did. Probably went on Monday and got back today because they have to be ready for their congregation tomorrow. See, they go on this little trip. It's an educational process that they must go through. Explain to their congregation that if you thought you were going to burn in hell by not accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior at the time of your judgment, well, now you can add sacrificing yourself for the good of Israel to that list of demands that the supposed Schofield Bible scripture bestows upon their congregations. If you thought you were scared before, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Dr. Mike Evans says Israel's fight is not just on the battlefield.
Right now, there's an ideological war that Israel's losing. So they need the evangelicals, they need the Zionists to fight an ideological war.
One of the goals of this gathering is to strengthen Christian support during a time of growing global anti-Semitism. They say the pulpit must speak louder.
Well, I wonder why. You see, they only want to tell one side of the story. They never want to tell both. How could you? If you told the other side, then the whole ideology collapses on itself. Why is there rising anti-Semitism in the world right now, ladies and gentlemen? I think we all know the answer. As I said, if you saw a clip earlier from this Israel Hayim event that Miriam Adelson organized in New York City earlier this week, those individuals, Zio Jew billionaires, they, as much as anybody, are responsible for the rise in anti-Semitism in conjunction, of course, with an ongoing genocide. But the good news is, again, as my colleague likes to say, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. They're not hogs anymore. They're elephants. Correct. And here we are watching this in real time, how this is all going to unfold. There is not a moment of clarity for anybody. In fact, Shelley, Casey has been a guest on our show before. I would definitely check. Actually, she's been a guest a couple of times, and I always have her back. She's awesome. So if you haven't checked those live streams, definitely check them out, or clips if you get a chance. And therein lies the rub. Casey Malone, friend of the show, comes from the Evangelical Christian Zionist Church in Oklahoma. Hell, fire, and brimstone, as they would preach if you did not show your support and fealty towards the state of Israel. And the same is true here. They say, well, all of this anti-Semitism is ramping up to an 11. But they don't actually say why. It's never why. It's just, oh my God, anti-Semitism, it's out of control. But why? You think people just do that for no reason? You think everybody just hates Jews, as Rabbi Schmuley? Yeah, that's a good one. Let's go with that one. Because he looks like one big booger head. So Schmuley is saying that, but he never explains why. Then you really have to ask yourself, what are they hiding? Apparently they're hiding quite a bit.
Then the propaganda.
So it's just, I think, an extraordinary time for pastors to go to their pulpits and to speak with clarity and with boldness and to push back on the anti-Semitism, the bigotry that is being pushed.
Man, oh man, oh man. Let me tell you guys, these really look like bigoted, hateful people, don't they? They really look like they're going to start trouble. What in the hell they can only get away with this for so long. They've gotten away with it for far too long. But as I have said repeatedly, we are in a quandary. We want to save the Palestinian people, but we know it may be a futile exercise. What we can do is work collectively to end the Zio state. That we can do. Their memory must not be forgotten. It is our job to continue pushing forward because they are running out of answers. They're running out of options. They don't know what to do. They are constantly trying to think of the next way to censor, to bargain, to threaten, to harm, as the Zio billionaires are now planning to do. But these people walking in the street, this is the nonviolent resistance that, despite what they may think, has a history of working. It doesn't work immediately, but over time it does. And a lot of self-sacrifice comes along with it.
Being pushed toward Jewish people and toward the people of Israel.
Unfortunately, the pulpit has become quiet about those things. We've allowed cultural voices to speak louder to the congregation than the pastors have on these topics.
I would like somebody to do me a favor real quick and look up Pastor Jesse Bailey of Legacy Family Church and let us know where he's based and how big his congregation is. Perhaps how much money that church brings in. This is one to boycott. You want to get in front of the camera? Okay, great. Keep doing it. I hope you all do. You know, to his credit, he not only wants the money, he wants the smoke that comes with it. Okay, well, you'll get it. So please, by all means, please share the information when you can.
cultural voices to speak louder to the congregation than the pastors have on these topics. So it's been motivating to make sure that we go back and bring the message of who Israel is to the Lord, and our role as Christians to continue to support and pray for Israel.
There's a growing cancer within the evangelical movement in America where people are thinking Israel doesn't matter and there's nothing biblical about our relationship to Israel. This is very dangerous. Israel doesn't matter and there's nothing.
You really think that these are peaceful people here? They're not. First of all, a lot of them are inbred. So let's start with that. That probably messes up the brain capacity significantly to start. Then you add in the layer of the incestuous nature that these people live amongst. The constant, we only want to be amongst each other and you know, like the hawking up that it sounds like when they talk. Well, let's also keep this in mind. This is also something very important. They'll spit on us, they'll hate us, they'll tell us how terrible we are. But you know what they won't do? They can't call us liars because they know what we're saying is the truth. You see, the truth will always set you free no matter how much it hurts. The great thing about what we do is we don't have to lie on our channel. We always speak truth to power. And if somebody has to dispute about what we say or do, I just say, go take a look at the archives. That's enough. I don't need to express myself any further. I do not care what these people think, what they do, and we're getting plenty of threats. Let me tell you, there's a bunch of them hopping in on the chat comments now, not necessarily in the stream because I can't keep up with what's being said right now, but I will tell you that while Jen and I always interact with our audience, and especially on the clips, you got plenty of them coming in there now that are threatening us. And yes, one of them happens to be the name Shlomo. Not kidding. One of them is Shlomo, and he messages us at Shlomo at 666. We just hit the sign of the devil in terms of live viewers. Smash that like button so we don't have to look at that number again. Very important to understand that they are going to tell us we've been warned, we're in trouble, you better watch your step. Our small but mighty channel is really that big of a threat? Well, as I said before regarding Charlie Kirk, right before he passed, he made a compilation video of what they perceived to be the most impactful voices that were not on their side. And they picked me as one of those people. And I thought, well, how the frick is that possible? At the time, we had like 50,000 subscribers. But whatever we're doing, it's clearly having an impact. So let's keep pushing this message forward, guys. It is essential that everyone that is here recognizes their value on our channel and how much that matters. From commenting, sharing, liking, subscribing, all of those things matter. The more people get to see who these people really are, with no filter, is the closer we will get to finally breaking this stranglehold. Remember, these people hate our guts. They want our money, they want our power and influence. But you better believe that as you've seen, the Christians and Muslims that they spit on every day in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, in the West Bank, in Gaza, that is how they feel. That is how the Zio billionaires, that is how all the Zios in this country feel about us. That is what true racism is, because they believe that they are ethnically, culturally, socially, and religiously superior to all of us. These are people who truly believe in a caste system, that everyone is beneath them, and that we must all be appreciative that they would spit on us, that their spit is valuable to our physical makeup. Man, we're probably blessed if we get hit with it. But like I said, these are people, the last thing they care about is the United States. So as Americans, those who are America first, those who are populist and believe this country could be something a lot better than what it is, who recognize this revolutionary moment that we're in, it all starts here, all of it. So we fight on. There's a little bit more to say.
Biblical about our relationship to Israel. This is very dangerous.
Ambassador Huckabee, a former pastor, sees a rising danger in the church.
Because this idea that God will break his covenant, or he has broken his covenant with the Jewish people, it borders on blasphemy. Because if God will break his covenant with the Jewish people, what on earth makes me think as a Christian that he will keep his covenant with me?
We sure hope he doesn't. You are not a Christian, Huckabee. You are a cuckabee, a big fat one at that. And for what? Everything that you're doing goes against all of the scripture, all of it. How in the hell do you think you're getting into heaven if heaven even exists? How? How you doing it? You are an accessory to mass murder. I tell you, they really love that Old Testament. Maybe that's what it's about. You know, the Old Testament is about wrath. New Testament is about forgiveness. But man, some people really like that wrath. And they all do it with a gleeful smile on their face, don't they? Why get 1,000 pastors into Tel Aviv? What would be the purpose of that? Why would they do it? On the one hand, they want them there to refine their message. That's very important. Don't kid yourself. That's very important to them. They have to have people there that can translate that message back to their congregation here at home. I don't know what the average evangelical church has in terms of their congregation, but I'm going to guess at a minimum, an evangelical church, I would say that probably on average, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 congregants per church. So if you have 1,000 pastors that are over there, you're talking the impact of hundreds of thousands of people. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't cover the whole base, not even close. It covers a small portion of it. But the message is out there. And who's to say there isn't another 1,000 pastors that are going to go out there in the near future? Now, on the one hand, this looks very devilish in behavior. But on the other hand, it's also a sign of how much of an impact we're having. So don't forget that. They wouldn't be doing this if we were not causing havoc. That's the whole point. And from where I stand, there is a great deal of havoc that is being caused here at home. And I will say this, and I say this with Jen, who is a little bit harsher than I am when it comes to the topic of Candace Owens. I don't trust her. I don't know her. I don't trust pretty much anybody that is in this space. How could you? Especially those who do this for a living. Jen and I do not do this for a living. We do this for a mission. So we can say, for now, until Google decides to cut our legs and our arms and maybe even our head off, we say what needs to be said. That's why we had James Leon right after Crystal and Sagar let him go from Breaking Points. Is Crystal never going to speak to me again because I did that? Maybe. Considering how petty a lot of people are, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But James does great work and is covering Charlie Kirk's assassination as well as Candace or Ian Carroll or anybody else. He's also covering Israel as well as anybody else. But I would say one of the more satisfying aspects of what has gone on over time is the exposure of these grifters that have found their way into exceptional prominence, money, influence, power even. Being able to impact votes, that's a big deal. And it also can create incredible egos as well. I bring this up because on the one hand, when it comes to Tim Pool, I will always be appreciative that Tim decided to have Jen as a guest on his podcast in December of 2020. It was at a time where we were trying to figure out what the future was going to look like in terms of our working relationship. We weren't entirely sure where we were going next. And guys, thank you, Jen, for pointing that out. If you are not currently subscribed on Rumble, please make sure you get over there and just hit that subscribe button for Revolutionary Change. We're at almost 750 live viewers. For those of you that are new or are currently subscribed but haven't subscribed over at Rumble, we always want to cover or hedge our bets. So if for whatever reason they yank the rug out from under us, I would highly recommend always making sure to subscribe to any other place where you can find us. We're also at Revolutionary Change. I think we're Revolutionary Change now on Instagram, TikTok, and X. So make sure, if you can, please subscribe. Now, again, I bring up Tim Pool because, again, I'm looking at somebody who did Jen and I a solid. It was actually, I can't really say definitively how much of an impact it actually had at the time because our podcast was brand new. We were not in a situation where it had, you can measure it. We had maybe a couple of thousand subscribers, if even that much at that time. We really had just gotten started. Like really had just gotten started. But Tim was nice enough to have her on. Jen actually had a very interesting, we'll call it debate between herself and Luke Rakowski, who I consider ourselves friendly with. I like Luke. I like Ian Crossland. We had a good conversation. It was interesting. Well, by Tim's chat, quite a few. But remember, at the time, and this was just prior to January 6th and that whole fiasco, you know, Tim was pulling in at that time. I mean, again, I haven't watched the show in God knows how long, so I don't really know what his numbers look like. But at the time when Jen was on, it was at least 60,000 live viewers at a time. So it was substantial in terms of how many people got to see this. And then when we got back to South Florida, we met up one night in Fort Lauderdale, and two people came up to Jen saying, I saw you on Tim Pool's show. It was amazing, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought that was very interesting. But there is no question that Tim Pool has changed his trajectory in terms of his work, in terms of his integrity, dare I say, over the past few years. Now, when you get to a point of exceptional wealth, yeah, that some mighty have fallen quite a bit. And that was the point I was going to make. Thank you, Ron, for pointing that out. You see, when we were there, Tim was absolutely flying high. He never got to the level of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, or yes, even Nick Fuentes, but he was pretty high up there, very high up there. And now 15,000 live viewers is still one hell of a reach, but it's certainly not what it once was. In fact, it's about 1/4 of what he once was at that time. And so in some respects, it would appear that Tim is crashing out. He got caught taking the money from Russia. That was indisputable. He was getting paid $100,000 a month to basically prop up various talking points, pro-war talking points from the side of Russia. Obviously, he has been a very vocal supporter of Trump. He claims that he's an independent, but we all know that the side he's falling on is not that side. And so, like I said, I don't pay that close attention to what he's doing, but I did pay attention to this because I thought his reaction to what is going on with Candace says it all.
Idea that Charlie would want her to advocate everyone pull their donations from the organization he built.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
No one hates Charlie more than Candace Owens.
Okay. Now, anybody who's objective would say, no, actually, when it comes to Candace Owens, nobody cared about Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens. That, I think, we can all universally agree upon. Candace Owens truly cares about Charlie Kirk. That was a friend to her. Now, we can get into the debate about who Charlie was, what he stood for, same with Candace. But one thing that cannot be disputed is Candace truly cared for this man. All the money, all the fame, all the power, it didn't mean anything to her when it came to her relationship with Charlie, because they came up together at the same time when they had very little, if anything. Then obviously it blew up, of course. But at the time, they were two young whippersnappers, if you will, and they developed a very close bond, like a brother and sister. That's the vibe that I get from them. And I'm sure from Candace's perspective, she's beyond shaken, because things got beyond real when they took him out. Perhaps because they thought, yeah, they say that they're going to do something, but are they really going to do? Oh, yeah, they are. And they sure did. But for Tim to immediately come right out of the gate on this clip and say that nobody hates Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens. Nobody loved Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens. And that includes his wife, or widow, I should say. But believe me when I tell you, Timmy's got a lot more to say.
Let me say that very, very clearly. I want to say it straight to the camera for all of her biggest fans, and then she can grab this clip and put it on her show. I do think it's absolutely hilarious that we're a substantially smaller show than hers, but she brought us up anyway. So thanks for saying my name, Candace. No one hated Charlie Kirk more than Candace Owens.
You are at a level of cope right now that's actually pathetic even for you. But this is what happens when eventually you crash out. Why? Tim does not go anywhere near the issue of Israel at all. And you can believe that, much like the other scummy, sellout punks like Steven Crowder, like Jack Posobiec, like Benny Johnson, they're not going to say a damn thing about Israel's involvement in what happened to Charlie. They're going to stick with the State Department talking point. That's what pays. That's what keeps them on the algorithm. And Timmy's going to do the same thing. This is a career, a very lucrative career. Now you're just paid propagandists. That's all you are. And you're going to crash like this? Dude, if you're going to go after Candace Owens, at least come up with a plausible talking point that people might be able to chew on. You just look like a fool. Tim Fool, if you will.
She reviles him, she spits on his grave, and she smiles while doing it. Okay, quote over. And I'll say this because Charlie spent his life building out these organizations. Candace is doing everything in her power to tear them down. She hates Charlie. She hates what Charlie built, and she wants it to burn. She hates Charlie's family. She hates Charlie's friends. She's accused them of killing him. She's accused his wife of having knowledge of these events. And then she comes out and says, I never said that. Not in the literal sense, but there's literally no other logical conclusion to what you're saying. So when I look at Colvett, and Bowyer and Blake and Erica and the people who work at Turning Point. And I say, you know, maybe they're not handling things properly and they don't know what to do what Charlie was doing. There's fears that Turning Point can't make it without Charlie. All of that is them trying to make Turning Point survive.
Turning Point is not going to survive. And one of the main reasons why Turning Point is not going to survive is because of Candace Owens. Candace Owens has been using her multi-million person platform to say Turning Point USA is a scam. Do not support them. And she's not telling them to support her either. She's just saying, just stop supporting them. And Tim Pool is carrying water for Turning Point USA. He's not even a part of their organization. In fact, I don't even think he's ever been a speaker at one of their main events. So who in the hell is he doing this for? That's the bigger question. Why is Tim stooping to such a low level. Again, I'm sure he said other things before, but again, this gets to the heart of the problem. And I just saw somebody mention PBD in the chat. Yeah, this is like Adam Zioscum Sosnick from the same area of South Florida that Jen is from, saying that Candace Owens doesn't have any friends. What the fuck does that mean? What does that have to do with anything? You think that that's how you measure somebody? Let me tell you something. In politics, you don't want a lot of friends. You can have acquaintances, and you sure as hell could have enemies. But friends in politics, oh, there's not many of them. And if you think there are, then either you're completely naive or you're in on the scam. And Tim is making himself look really, really guilty. And yes, Patrick Betts, Star of David, is still alive and kicking. And apparently Patrick Betts, Star of David, is the primary organizer for America Fest with TPUSA coming up next weekend. Oh, we're going to have a lot to say about that next Saturday. But this is kind of demented in a lot of ways in terms of how Tim is handling this. But he's not done.
Candace is advocating you abandon Turning Point USA. It's kind of remarkable to see.
But that's a good thing. Abandon Turning Point USA. Absolutely. There is no organization in the United States that had a greater impact on Christian Zionists supporting Israel below the age of 35 than TPUSA. Nothing could ever come close. Incredible grift in what they were able to accomplish over the past decade plus. But like I said, Charlie had an attack of conscience. And I'm sure the internal maneuverings within his organization also threw him for a loop. But this is completely different. It's not like a slight dose of criticism. It's we must deal with Candace Owens. And you're all going to speak ill of her. Tim didn't really care much to talk to me. We spoke a little bit. He actually showed me his 3D printer that created a gun. I saw that. Took me into his safe room, I guess you would call it. It was a place that was stocked with probably 3 or 4 months worth of food. But they didn't want me on the show. They had me sit in a corner. And I was like, hey, listen, this is for Jen and I. Like, it's not about me. This is about what we're trying to do. So, okay, that's fine. But no, I'm not related to, I mean, look, I can pass for Buscemi, apparently. I could also pass for Walken, too. You're all coming to me all wrong. It's the wrong tone. Why don't you all just take a break, listen while I express my thoughts on Tim Pool or Dim Tool, whatever his nickname is. He's got quite a few. Funny guy, not really, but let's continue.
But let's just do the logic here. Simple question for all of you. Throw it in the chat. Who do you think cares more about Turning Point? The people trying to salvage and save it, or the woman telling everybody to pull their donations? Then you can ask yourself this.
I'm going to ask you this. Why in the fuck should Turning Point USA be saved? What do they do besides grift for corporate special interests? This is an organization that is funded by the Zio billionaire class. Charlie attempted to pull away from them. No, you don't. And here you are, simping for that organization? Well, I don't know, Timmy. It's not looking good. You really didn't think long and hard about this, but then again, considering his history, this is not surprising. He has been shown to have his hands out for any amount of corporate special interest money. He doesn't hesitate. That's probably why he's lost support from a number of people that used to be on his show. We've attempted to get in touch with him. I have Tim's phone number. And when I've attempted to get a hold of him, he's ignored me for years. Anything, doesn't matter. Even if it was to be helpful, doesn't matter. Some people think that they're just above reproach. Well, now that he's falling down the side of the mountain, because when you go from that level down to where he's at now you see what happens when they really start to crash out. Because eventually, if Tim doesn't have a large audience, then those corporate checks are not coming anymore. You're only as good as how much of an audience you can sucker into falling for your bullshit. Eventually, when they're hip to what you're up to, they just move on. And that's it. And not another tear will be shed. Much like the IOF who offed himself. Well, guess what? No one is going to feel sorry for you, Tim, when you can't afford that multi-million-dollar compound in the middle of nowhere. That's life.
If Charlie were alive today, what do you think he'd be saying about all of this? Do you think he would say, I don't trust my wife and my best friends to run my organization? Or do you think he'd be saying, Candace should burn down Turning Point USA?
Turning Point USA is going to get burnt down whether you like it or not. And it's not because they specifically did something that you can point to and say, this is the reason. It's a collection of a multitude of different reasons, not the least of which is your pathetic rant, which doesn't make any sense. You're defending an organization that has upper management taking ungodly amounts of money in terms of salary. And they've been shown to have been caught in tons of lies. Tons of lies. Candace is going to be featured very prominently on this stream this evening because there's multiple layers to this. But I will say this, and this is coming straight from Candace Owens. These are the issues that exist right now with Turning Point USA that she believes is a big problem. Number one, the amazing, heroic, magnificent Mikey McCoy had blood all over him when Charlie was assassinated. As we saw by actual amateur footage from the event, that is not true. Who lied about it? Rob McCoy, who we've covered extensively recently. Number two, Charlie was a committed evangelical who only liked Catholic architecture. That, of course, is not true. It has been well documented by Candace, who is a Catholic, that Charlie was considering conversion to Catholicism. And perhaps in part because of the distinction between where the Catholic Church stands on Israel and where the evangelical church, Protestant, stands on Israel. Number three, Charlie's neck stopped a 30-06 bullet because he ate salad and had strong bones. A Christian miracle. Not really. Just one big stupid lie. And maybe a lie that they decided to throw out there that they thought would stick, but man alive, you really don't want to question people who know their firearms and know what they're capable of doing. And then when you get caught in a lie, you double and triple down on it. And that, of course, was Andrew Colvett, who came on my radar as a result. Number four, Charlie never blinked in his support for Israel. I don't even need to comment on that. We know he did. Number five, the magnificent Mikey McCoy called his father first after Charlie's assassination. Whoever he called, it wasn't his father. That much has been verified. Again, what more information will come out, we'll never know. Number six, Terrell was told to remove the cameras by police, the ones that were in the back behind Charlie Kirk right after he was shot. No, that's not true. The reason they were removed is because they were trying to cover up a crime scene. As we know that they ultimately did, they cemented over it. Number seven, Terrell moved the SIM cards because people were stealing hats. If you're going to lie, come up with a better excuse. For the love of God, it truly amazes me how bad some people are at lying. But then again, lying is a sin anyway, so why do it? The truth will always set you free. But they can't lie. I mean, they can't tell the truth, because if you tell the truth, it gives up the grift. And if you give up the grift, where are you going to get the money? It's not like there are readily available jobs out there for numbnuts like these people. Number 8, Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk never had any bad blood between them. Ben Shapiro, we all have bad blood with Ben shit Piro. Bad blood enough that he breaks his own nose punching a speed bag. A speed bag broke his nose. Your time's coming too, Benny boy. Number 9, Charlie established Doge was not unusual. Turning Point has financially audited the company every year since its inception. That is not true. They are in deep shit when it comes to their financial wheelings and dealings. And finally, Mikey McCoy was a hero on the day of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah, not really. The scam is over for them. And hopefully, in the very near future, the scam will be over for the rest of these Looney Tunes, corporate whores, anti-American scum. Now, I'm not saying that for every Turning Point USA or near attended Center for American Progress is the reason why we don't have nice things, but they play a very outsized role. No question. And hopefully, enough people are starting to wake up to that reality. We keep pushing forward, guys. That's our job. If you're enjoying this conversation so far, which we hope you are, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We have had a handful of super chats come in already. So let's give a big shout out to Piano Man with the $10. Always great to see you, my friend. Gezin82 with the $10. Seen a documentary on Melia massacre from Vietnam, or Melia massacre from Vietnam, and one of the soldiers' own son was run over and killed, and he eventually unalived himself. After like 20 years, he couldn't get over what he did. It is tough carrying certain burdens around. I totally understand. Jim Talib with the $5. Always great to see you, my friend. Shut it on with the $9.99. People in these systems don't break from guilt. They break when they realize they're just tiny pieces of a machine that can't achieve its goals. Resistance outlasts force every time. I agree. That's why we say the truth will set you free. Now on Niger with the $9.99. Thank you, Peter and Jen, for all you do. Please don't stop talking about Palestine and the evil these Zionists commit. No, we will not stop. We cannot stop. We won't stop. For there is a lot more truth that needs to be spoken. There is much to be concerned about in terms of where our country is going right now. And that is why, as I alluded to, Candace has done her part to speak truth to power and say unequivocally that Turning Point USA must come to an end. That is a very gutsy move on her part, and I credit her for having the guts to do it. Smash that like button if you haven't yet, guys. And yes, a lot of people are getting that 7K. But I will say this. There are a lot of dangerous people out there right now who are looking around wondering, are you effing with our money supply? Is something bad coming around the bend? I don't know. Maybe it is. There is another interesting take that somebody decided to have regarding not just Candace Owens, but the collapsing Turning Point USA. Could you believe it's one of Rabbi Schmutzy's children Now, I don't know which of the 9 kids this one is, but a very privileged child had this to say about Charlie Kirk.
Main person responsible besides Candace Owens for what Candace Owens is doing to Turning Point USA, the way she's harassing the people who work there. She's tearing the organization apart. She is accusing the leadership there of murder. Millions of people in America now believe it because they follow her. The person responsible is Charlie.
Really? So now Charlie's responsible for his own death, coming from a psychopathic Zio scum, privileged child, because that's what you are. You're a child. Yeah, apparently this might be the dildo girl. Okay. No, I wouldn't, AB. And a lunatic at that, without question.
This was his fatal flaw in his lifetime. I loved and love Charlie. I listened to him every single day of my life, basically, his biggest fan. And I always knew his fatal flaw was that he never called Candace Owens out by name. He knew what she was doing. He knew that she was making conspiracy theories about a lot of people, but specifically Jews. Turning Point USA hosted her at an event last year, the year before that, and the year before that, after she had told the public things like, there is a ring of Jewish pedophiles that run Hollywood that send children around the world to be molested by adults.
There are pedophilia rings around the world. Are you fucking stupid? And there are plenty of them in Israel. And you know that. If you're done playing with your sex toys, maybe you would know that. Jen, I can only get so close, but can you make out what that name is on that in Hebrew that she wears around her neck? They make it so easy to be hated. They really do. Such pathetic people. Yeah, perhaps it's her name. Just call her Dildo Freak. That's a good one.
He knew that she was saying things like there are Jews in the world who drink the blood of Christians on Passover. And he not only never called her out, and by the way, you can still be friends with someone and publicly say this is wrong. He never did that, but more than that, he continued to host her at Turning Point USA. And this is something the non-Jewish world sometimes doesn't understand. And yes, Charlie was the greatest friend to Jews and Israel because he believed in the truth. But sometimes they don't understand that when there is evil, something like Candace Owens, the evil that she was doing to Jews, creating conspiracy theories about us, slandering us, just making things up and accusing us, they don't understand.
Now, I don't know if you know anything about psychoanalysis, but this girl cannot look directly into the camera when she says certain things because she's lying and she has to think about what she's saying. No. The slandering is just truth-telling that you don't like. And the fact that Schmuley is your father. The apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. I'll give him this much credit, and this is not saying much about you, mind you. Well, you probably look a lot more like your mother than you do your father. That's probably the nicest thing I could say. No, Charlie Kirk clearly was changing his opinion as well as his business maneuverings regarding Israel. He was warned not to do it. He was doing it anyway, and now he's not here anymore. It's pretty cut and dry, as far as I can see. Anybody else want to chime in and share their thoughts on that? I don't think I'm wrong. But the level of projection that comes from these Zios is very telling. And they also like to drop hints, as if to say, Charlie got killed because of Charlie. They're not very subtle. Not even a little bit.
And that they're next. They think it stops with Jews, so you don't have to call it out because it's not such a big deal. You can see in Charlie's life, he didn't call her out. And in his death, she's plaguing him. She's destroying everything. She's destroying the people he loved most in the world, the people he trusted the most in the world. It's the ugly truth. When you don't stop the evil immediately, call it out, say it's wrong, that evil will eventually come to you too. And that's what we're seeing now.
That's why we're trying to stop you. That is why you're crashing out, just like Tim crashed out, like a lot of others are crashing out, because you messed with the wrong people. You finally messed with somebody who was going to fight back with a platform that you couldn't just make go away. That's what's happening. And that's why they're reacting this way. And as a result, what you're finding is that there are people that are finding their courage now. Some people have to be at a certain place where they feel that they can come out from the shadows, knowing that there's still a lot of risk involved, but that there's enough people that have their back so that it is appropriate for them to say what needs to be said. Now, I don't know this gentleman, and I believe his name is Josh, but apparently he used to work for Turning Point USA, and he decided to spill the beans regarding Charlie Kirk.
My name is Joshua Peterson. I worked for Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA Faith, and I knew Charlie Kirk personally. I want to say on the record that there was a inner circle at Turning Point USA that was constantly working against Charlie and his interests and what he wanted to do, as well as there was a Jewish influence in Turning Point that he was not very fond of.
Well, now I wonder if that Jewish influence was little spoiled brat child of Schmuley. Well, you never know. I mean, with the way they operate, anything's possible. But this is Joshua Peterson, somebody who worked for Turning Point USA and had a relationship with Charlie Kirk, was well aware of what his business moves were intended to be, and perhaps what some others were trying to make them be.
That he wanted to get rid of. He tried doing this, he tried creating a Doge department, and he gets assassinated. Another thing that makes me believe this inner circle was constantly working against Charlie was because of the fact that he had a whole entire branch of Turning Point that he had no idea about, and that was the stock market branch. Now, the thing about this branch is it's been getting millions of dollars poured into it over the past 4 years now, and that's been seen through their latest tax returns, which were also filed late, which was weird, but that's not a topic for another time. This stock market group that Turning Point has been throwing millions of dollars into the stock market for the past 4 years now, and Charlie Kirk had no knowledge of that whatsoever.
You know, they say that the inmates are running the asylum. This is what ultimately ends up happening with an organization. And as I've pointed out on this channel, I went to a Turning Point USA event. I didn't pay to go to it, but I went to the promenade of a Turning Point USA event because I just happened to be in Tampa at the same time that they were hosting one. Let me tell you something. There is a lot of money that goes into these events. A lot. Millions of dollars. The average person is not funding an organization like Turning Point. It is of the wealth class, the power class, the people who really make decisions. That's who does this. At the time, Charlie was one hell of a Trojan horse. He sold his organization well. As I have said it before, I'll say it again. He's the best grifter I've ever seen. He did a hell of a job. Don't hate the player, hate the game. But he played it well, very well. And now, because of the fact that the Zio billionaires that funded the organization didn't like the direction that Charlie was going in, they said, well, we'll get rid of him. We'll figure it out as we go forward. We're not really going to overthink this. We can't have somebody questioning the state of Israel, of which we rely heavily on the voting bloc to make sure that it stays exactly as it is. Even in the face of a genocide, didn't matter. But they made their move. So when Charlie thought he was running this organization, he really wasn't. He found out the hard way that so much of what he was attempting to do with the organization was not under his control. It has been suggested that he had full intentions of doing an audit of TPUSA, hence the Doge reference that Candace has brought up. Again, can't verify it, but the most logical explanation is often the correct one. And in this case, knowing full well how that organization was maneuvering, people get killed for a lot less money than what Charlie was dealing with. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a lot of money. Not a little money, life-changing money, serious money. And the money is only one part of it. Then there's the power that comes with it. The millions upon millions of votes. It has been suggested that Charlie Kirk, more than anyone else, was responsible for Trump winning in 24 because of the youth vote that came out for him. You know what? There's probably a good kernel of truth to that. Josh has a little more to say.
Now, if you also look into it a little bit deeper, if you look at the staff on that branch specifically, it says 0. It says there's nobody employed in that branch, yet they're pouring $5 million into funds for employees. Make it make sense. That sounds like money laundering to me. It sounds like there's some pyramid scheme going on behind the scenes at Turning Point that Charlie did not know about originally, and I think that he was planning to expose that, and that's ultimately what got him killed.
It's one way of looking at it, and one way that I don't think is out of bounds. But you know what I do know, ladies and gentlemen? And I'd like to think that all of us can universally agree on this point. I think, I could be wrong, but the one point that I think we can all universally agree upon, whatever the State Department is selling about Tyler Robinson, believe the opposite. That's it. I am very clear about that. Extremely clear. So if you're going along with that narrative, then you're not willing to go where you need to go. We are living in a revolutionary period right now. You will not put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. You have to rip it off. I couldn't have imagined that the sacrifice of Charlie would lead us to where now people are really waking up to the reality of what's going on. But hey, I am grateful. And if Candace is going to carry that water to make sure that the truth sets us all free, then kudos to Josh, perhaps because of Candace's courage, that he ultimately had the same courage within himself to come out and say what he needed to say. Will this get reported by many people? Probably not. But we'll report it because it's the right thing to do. Whatever it takes to break the Zio's stranglehold over our country, that is our job. Period. Now, apparently, for those of you who are big supporters of Mr. Fuentes, that's not the case. There are many reasons why he's crashing out on Candace. I think in part, it's jealousy. He may be 27, but he acts 17. And I think terminally online individuals can end up doing what they're doing. And in his case, he occasionally will drop the veil, and you'll see exactly who he really is. Now, I ask anybody here what anybody believes of Nick Fuentes, and I am not here to tell you to dismiss him, to judge him, or pick sides. I only ask you to listen to his words. Listen to what he says. Listen to what he stands for. Because the one thing that we always point out, always, is the truth. And sometimes the truth is too much for people to handle because you are only willing to go up to a certain point. You go up to a certain point, and then you step back because you know that if you cross that point of no return, there is no going back. You are either on the side of justice. I would agree with you, Katie. I actually think Nick Fuentes is very smart. But he's also immature. And he also is probably jealous. But I also believe, as Jen would agree, that shortly after Charlie's assassination, he saw the opportunity and he decided to not only cultivate Charlie's audience, but he also got a talking to about where he could and couldn't go. And he listened. That's why when it comes to the topic of Charlie Kirk and his assassination, Nick Fuentes is not going where he needs to go. He's not asking the questions that need to be asked. And one has to ask themselves, why would that be the case? Why would Fuentes refuse to go where he needs to go? He knows what's going on. We know. And so Fuentes doesn't like Candace Owens calling him out. And he really revealed himself in this clip.
Pissed off now. I'm putting it to bed. It's done. You're both. Turning Point is done. Candace Owens, her credibility's toast. I cannot wait. The defamation lawsuits, bring them forth. Bring them forth. The vindication. Cherish this moment. Like, please, hate on me now. Go ahead, cancel me. Go ahead, cancel me for saying this. It makes the vindication better next year. It always does.
Now, I just have to say, I don't know if that's a green screen behind Fuentes, but I really do like that little Christmas setup. It's kind of cute. You know, what can I say? I'm a sucker for the holiday season. I'm from New Jersey. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's just something about being from the Northeast. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. But we'll continue.
Been there, done it. So anyway, okay, we are going to move on. We're going to get into our news, our featured story. We're going to talk about the national defense strategy. I had to go off there a little bit, only because, you know, the low IQ masses, they're like counting on you to be on the back foot. They're counting on you to say, so listen, guys, you know, I like what she's doing, but whatever. No, it's stupid. It's stupid and it's weird, and I'm not falling for it. I won't. I didn't fall for Trump. I'm not falling for this. This is a load of bullshit. You lost me. Egyptian planes, maroon t-shirts, beekeepers. Charlie talked to me in a dream. What is wrong with you people? Someone with balls needs to slap you idiots across your faces. You're watching a show of a stupid black woman saying, Charlie told me he was betrayed in my dream.
Candace is not stupid. It doesn't matter that she's black, although for some people, apparently it does. And what we have found, again, this brings our conversations full circle, particularly with our friend James Lee. Where do you think Candace was getting all of her information from regarding what was going on at the airport? What was going on with the Google searches? She was citing James Lee's investigative journalism. So we are less than a Kevin Bacon extension away from this story. And Fuentes is suggesting that there's nothing there. Okay. People have premonitions in their dreams all the time, and they, in many cases, tend to be correct depending on how deep-seated the memory actually is. There's a subliminal messaging that goes on when you sleep. Sometimes you hear something in your dream, and then you wake up and you verify it, and it's correct. Now, that's not to say that the way Candace may have been describing a vivid dream she had about Charlie, that that's the reason. But we have seen that what she's doing is an absolute good. Now, I do believe that she is on a personal mission, on the one hand, because of her friend being killed. And on the other hand, she's probably been around these Zio billionaires and she hates them because they all call her a behind, I can't say the word, but you know what I mean. She knows what they think of her. And that's why little Nikki here is referring to her in this context by saying that she's a Why? Because the true colors come out when you get mad. Why he's mad? I don't know. But again, this comes up to, where's the line? What line can I not cross? You can't cross the line when it comes to questioning Israel's involvement in Charlie's assassination. Why? Because there are hundreds of millions, if not billions, billion with a B, dollars invested in cultivating the youth to support the state of Israel. And if it turns out that the state of Israel was involved in Charlie's assassination, that is the end of Turning Point USA. And that is the end of any Christian nationalist organization trying to cultivate voters to support Israel. Maybe you'll get the older voters that'll still come on board with that shit, but those days are dwindling fast. Very fast. So what Nick's trying to do here, I don't know. But he's really revealing himself, and this is just getting started.
And you idiots are saying, well, sometimes dreams are very powerful. You fucking idiot. What happened to you people? Seriously, we used to be the smart ones. Anti-Semitism used to be smart and ahead of the curve. If you were saying Jews did 9/11, Jews brought us into Iraq, we know what we're talking about. We know the names and we know what's going on. And now you got all these stupid idiots watching the show saying, but Nick, Candace said that Charlie confessed to her in a dream. I don't even believe what I'm hearing when I hear that stuff.
I don't even believe what you're saying. Because if Candace even said anything to that effect, again, part of it is always tongue-in-cheek. It's not like she just picks this stuff up out of nowhere. She is very adamant about the fact that she asks her people, of which she has over 5 million subscribers, to be sleuths, to be on-the-ground reporters, real journalism. You know what that is? Not anything Nick would know anything about because he just talks into a microphone for a living. But Candace, she actually has her people go out there and do actual on-the-ground reporting. Get what you can and always do it anonymously to protect yourself. She has a private tip line. She makes sure that it's secure. It's probably international. Making sure that people can provide information. So I don't understand why you would try to crash out on this point, Nikki. It doesn't seem logical. In fact, it seems like you're trying to protect somebody or some entity. You say a lot of good things. You also say a lot of bad, dumb things. And he's not even close to being finished.
She goes on her show, I've been having visions of beekeepers all year. Oh my gosh, our ancestors would hate you. Do you know that our ancestors invented every field of knowledge? Ask Ricardo Duchesne. Our ancestors invented every field of knowledge. Plato would hate you. Aristotle would hate you. Da Vinci and Isaac Newton would hate you.
Just say that you hate her and be done with it already, buddy. Making up this slop, as you like to say, as you go along. This is just silly stuff.
We are becoming Negrofied. The Jews are right. We are becoming true Goyim if we believe in fucking bullshit superstition like that.
Okay. I have never heard the term Negrofied before, but that's another reveal. And Goyim? I thought being Goyim was what you were embracing because that's what the Zio Jews say about people that aren't them. So now you're talking in the context that this is a bad thing to be referred to as that. I thought you would be wanting to wear it as a badge of honor. So not only are you throwing Candace under the bus and using bigoted terms to refer to her or to anybody that wants to do business with her, I don't know, sign me up because I'll pick her over you, pal, at least right now. Very sad, immature. But does negrified mean being more like the people closer to the center of the effing earth? Guy, this is why I can't talk about this MFer. I don't blame you because right now he's showing his whole ass. And for anybody who is, and there's always going to be people that support him that think that this is appropriate. Okay. We'll agree to disagree because this isn't correct at all. This is pathetic. Basing it about this is just sad. And it's COPE. This is COPE of the highest order. And for anybody, remember, there's a difference between being somebody who likes Fuentes, even respects Fuentes, enjoys his content, that's a good one. Hey! Just understand that, as we said, if you move up to a line and you have to make a decision about whether you will cross it or you will retreat from it, Nick is retreating from one of the most important lines that you must cross if you're trying to end the Zio state's physiological control over our daily lives. Because they got us up here and here. And I'm not surprised. There is such thing as crashing out so badly that you basically wreck your entire industry. Whatever you've built, people will not be able to look at you the same again. How could they? I thought that we were past the bigotry, Nikki, but I guess not. Imagine getting your ass owned by a black woman. Gee, that really sucks.
It is literally like medieval peasant idiocy. Someone in the village said she had a dream. Oh, come on, guys. Seriously? It's anti-white. It's anti-white. It disgusts me.
I would have him on in a heartbeat. I would go on with him in a heartbeat. At least I would be honest in my conversation with him. What is he honest about? Not about this. Anti-white. Let me assure you of somebody who's not anti-white. That's Candace Owens. She's definitely not anti-white. I think we again can all agree that Candace Owens, who is black, I'm pretty sure she's black, but isn't anti-white. I think that's a safe bet. I don't know how the chat feels, but I'm putting my money down on that statement.
It disgusts me. It reminds me of, I used to work at UPS, and
well, that explains a lot.
It was all black people there. They would get bussed in from Gary, Indiana, from the south side of Chicago, and they all believed in magic. They all, to a one, they all believed in magic. You know, we'd be in the trailers. unloading the boxes, and we talk about everything and anything, and they all believed in magic and supernatural stuff. This is no different. Candace Owens is like any other black person that believes in magic.
I mean, I have never heard these racist, these bigoted, like, again, there has to, if there's one thing I want everyone here to understand, there is a difference between racism and bigotry. Do not misinterpret the terms. What he's saying right now is full-on bigotry. It's not racism in the truest sense in terms of what that means. Zio scumbags in Israel, those are racists. Those are people that believe they are culturally, ethnically, socially, and religiously superior to you and everyone else. Nick here apparently doesn't like black people. Okay, fine. It's bigotry, pure and simple. That trope, I mean, again, just the fact that he worked at UPS, and like I said, that does explain a lot. I'm not really going to get into that now, but just trust me when I tell you, for him to go there, wow. But hey, I like good transparency. I like people, if they are bigots, just to say it. Just tell us how you really feel. Because I don't like living in a world where people will say one thing to your face, then another thing behind your back. To his credit, he at least says what's on his mind, maybe to the detriment of his following, because if this was just any black woman out there, yeah, maybe a significant portion of his audience might just go along with it because that's how they really feel because of their own shortcomings. But you're doing it to Candace Owens. This is not going to help you, buddy. This is going to hurt you in a big fucking way.
Basically. And white people, credulous white people, are buying into it. I'm honestly disappointed in all of you. And when all of this gets exposed, when the whole thing gets revealed, I can't wait to feel the vindication. This might be the sweetest one yet. Because this is the most unpopular position I think I've ever taken. And I'm happy to do it every single time. I love it. So anyway, yeah, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of white people when I say this. It's like,
I don't know how many white people you think you're speaking for, but I gotta tell you, I don't think it's as many as you think. It really isn't. You're actually pretty sad. And as I've said before, and I will say again, the people who hate, the people who lash out, they're very often people that are hurt, that are lonely, that are maybe even incels, that are not successful. And they have their own personal hangups. And that rejection causes them to reject others, even in a bigoted way. In Nick's case, Nick's a millionaire. He ain't crashing out. He's just phony and a fraud. This guy's a Christian? My ass.
I want to put on my Burger King crown and say, get this fucking bitch off the plane, you know? When I look at Candace Owens, I say Burger King crown equipped. Burger King crown selected from inventory and equipped. And I'm saying, get this bitch off the fucking plane.
Oh, Nikki, you poor soul. You know, Jen likes to say that the overwhelming majority of this country needs upper management, and especially for people that are, as I said, hurting. As our friend Russell Dobular over at Do Dissonance like to say, Benny in the closet. Yes, it's funny. Nikki clearly has his own personal hangups, whatever they are. But this level of bigoted ranting against Candace, it's not only beyond childish, it's just downright pathetic. There's a lot of different things that you can say. But this is going to hurt him. And it should. Like I said, I don't trust Candace. I trust her enough, limited wise, because of what she's fighting for. And I will fight alongside her because she is using her platform to break through to the people that need to hear it in this country. She is broken through to such an extent that she's got everybody crapping out. Snake eyes, that's what you're rolling at the craps table. All of them. If she simultaneously breaks Turning Point USA and breaks Conservative Inc. in the process, oh, God love her forever. I should send her a Christmas present. I believe she lives in Nashville, if I'm not mistaken. But credit where it's due. She broke Fuentes, and he broke himself by doing this clip. This is what happens when you're extremely immature and you don't know how to hold it. Bite your tongue, move on. But this will be replayed over and over and over again. So if anybody ever questions whether you're a rational individual or just an opportunist, well, let me tell you, this is really opportunistic on your part. Yeah, that's Fuentes. That's his attitude. And remember, Fuentes grew up in a good family in Chicago. It's not like this kid comes from trouble. He doesn't come from trouble at all. I'm not saying he's from Tucker Carlson's background, but you know who did actually grow up very working class, extremely working class? Candace Owens. Candace Owens had the full black experience, not just skin color, but culture and society as well. She owns you, Nick, and I feel bad for you, kid. People are searching, as my trusty partner likes to say. The overwhelming majority of people need upper management. That's why they gravitate to people like Nick. He's extremely charismatic. He's very knowledgeable. He's very smart. And he's very convincing when he wants to be. But he's also somebody that harbors a lot of hatred. And whether that's because he holds it in, and that's what he's fighting on the front lines, in his own mind anyway. But just know, there are lines he won't cross. And this was a big one. And now he compounded it by going after Candace in the most petty, childish, humiliating, bigoted way possible. And it will not soon be forgotten, nor should it be. There is a reason that this message of hers is resonating. There is a reason why Candace is able to get to the level that she has gotten to. And to her credit, it's because she's saying what needs to be said. She has, like Tucker Carlson, FU money. And when you have FU money, you can say whatever you want, pretty much. Because then you're also protected. Of course, there's people who want to get rid of her. But there's also people who I keep saying are smart enough to see where the tea leaves are flying when it comes to where this country's going. She gets it. And several of her benefactors get it as well. Candace lays it on the table, clear as day, with this statement. And this says it all.
Infiltrate and convince us that this is the same party while we get gaslit about everything that's happening. Like I said, you lost the party. MAGA got fractured, not when Tucker Carlson interviewed Nick Fuentes, but when Donald Trump looked at us in our faces and said, Epstein who?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? What are we doing here? I thought this guy's he's been dead for so many years. He totally came to Mar-a-Lago and I kicked him out. He didn't belong there. He was a really terrible person. but we're still talking about him. No, that's long gone. We don't have to talk about him anymore. We're totally done. We are making America great again. No, we're not. I cannot believe that there are people who really think that we are going to just let the Epstein story go. Elle, that is an adorable picture of you and your pooch, I must say. Thank you, Tall Chick in Vegas. Appreciate it. Maybe I'll come to Viva Las Vegas and do it there. The truth will set us free. It's been the message of the evening. The truth will set us free. We will not allow this to be swept under the rug anymore. We can't.
That's when it was game over. Because Israel first is a cancer cell. It is a cancer cell, left or right, to everything and everyone that wants to play around with it. It is a radical psychosis that has manifested itself within both parties. And it is so radical that, in case you missed it, yesterday, they started attacking Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper, 23-year-old, bubbly Brett Cooper. She makes the majority of her videos dedicated to pop culture. Yes, she covers things that are, I would say, mainstream politics, nothing too daring, never speaks about Israel. And she did her part, by the way. Zionists wanted her to do her part and encouraged New Yorkers to get out and vote against Mamdani. But it's not enough, of course, because this is a radical ideology.
This is one thing that Candace understands as well as anybody. And yes, we will take a little credit for this with the message on our channel. When it comes to the Israel Zionist ideology, you can never do enough. No matter how much money Charlie Kirk and his organization was able to make as conjunction of Turning Point USA for the Zionist billionaire class, with the likes of Brett Cooper even, perhaps Candace Owens when she was at the Daily Wire or affiliated with Turning Point USA. You're only as good as the last thing that you said on behalf of the state of Israel. All your past exploitations, all of your past accomplishments, it doesn't matter. Their ideology is hanging by a fucking thread, and they know it. That's why they'll attack anybody. You get in their way, they'll keep coming. And Candace is 1,000% correct about this.
Give them 100%. You even say one critique, and they don't want to break bread with you. They want to destroy you, and that's what they want to do to Brett Cooper.
That's also what they want to do to you, young lady. And that's what they've been doing. But the good news is you have allies in very interesting places. And that's the whole point about this whole experience, this whole experiment, if you will. Can we really put differences aside and find a way to come together on the most critical issues facing us today? If I sat down with Candace Owens and had a conversation about women's reproductive freedom, we're not going to agree. I personally don't even get involved because it's a women's health issue, and I will always maintain that position. But you know what? We're going to agree on a few big issues like Israel and Palestine. And in the grand scheme of what we're facing right now, that's pretty fucking big. And so, to her credit, she has never let up on Turning Point USA. And her desire to have them do you want to say it's a debate, discussion panel, whatever you want to call it. She wanted to get together with these guys to hash out all of the details with Andrew Colvett, with Blake Neff, all of them. And rightfully so. But as we found out, she called their bluff and they folded like a cheap suit. This is an example of what happens when even your own people start asking, hey, what the hell's going on here?
She's saying she can't attend in person. Can she attend on a live stream or, and you guys do live streams all the time. And is that going to be an option?
Gina.
I'm just trying to make this come together.
Of course, Gina. So first of all, our initial statement, it was on the show on Wednesday. I made it at the request of Erica. All of this has been at the direction and approval of Erica.
You know, the one thing that I always find interesting about Charlie's widow is that you never hear her actually confirm any of these statements. It's almost like she's being held in a closet at gunpoint, and then when she's allowed to come out, she makes a statement confirming or not even acknowledging what was just said. I'm just saying something very suspicious about all this.
Because she heads this. And so what we were announcing there is we said she has said things that are not true, and we did not address them for a long time. We stated the reasons why, that we thought a lot of them were just not, how to put it, we initially just thought no one would believe a lot of what was being said, and we also just, we remembered the same friendship that Charlie had, and we just hoped that this would go away without requiring any sort of direct statement or confrontation from us. So what was approved is we announced we are going to respond to this. And what I said was we are going to announce a date soon. We actually hadn't agreed on it at the time I read the statement. We're going to announce a date where we're going to respond to this. And once we announce it, Candace is free to attend in person.
Speaking of Blake is TPUSA Fuentes, that's actually not that far from the truth, Mike. So why is that true? It turns out that Blake Neff used to be a producer for Tucker Carlson. And when he was a producer for Tucker Carlson, he had one of those dummy accounts that he decided to use as a means to going online, or a burner account, if you will, and decided to basically put as many different bigoted comments at various people, thinking that he would never get caught, but he was exposed by CNN of all places. He promptly was fired by Tucker, and then somehow he ended up becoming an employee of Turning Point USA. Eventually he became Charlie's producer on the podcast. And now he's one of the main talking heads in the studio. Very, very convenient, wouldn't you say? He's got a little bit more to fumble his words on.
As what we announced. And so once we agreed on a time, I announced what the time was going to be. Candace, for her part, had said, you name the time, you name the place. That is what we did.
So what did you do? You named the time and place on her husband's birthday? Now, she even said, look, I see what you're doing, and I know what you're trying to do, but I will play along. I can't be there in person, but let's do it online. Let's have a digital conversation. And Turning Point USA, led by this bald-headed jabroni, Blake Neff, said, oh no, if you don't do it our way, we don't do it at all. So they are coping and crashing out themselves, because of course they are.
As for why it was put out at that time, I would just say I don't think she had any difficulty in finding out what our scheduled time was. It seems everyone found it out quite quickly. And lastly, on the point of why it's in person, I think it's pretty intuitive that given what is being said, what the way this has worked is that it's critical to be in person if you want to be authentic and to be detailed.
So a couple of things. He can't look into the camera again, just like Schmutzy's daughter can't do it either, which means they're lying because that's what they do. And Candace, when this was presented to her, decided to say in a very quip, joking kind of way, understandably so, of course, no assassinations. Well, you know what? I contemplated going to the Turning Point USA event in Phoenix if I was able to work it into my schedule, if I had the extra money. Neither would work. And so I'm not going, but it's understandable where someone would say, you really don't want to go there. It's probably not a good idea. And I would say to Candace that unless you're coming with Secret Service detail, you probably don't want to go in person. And if this jackoff is saying that he can't talk to you unless it's in person, I would be a little concerned about that as well.
And that is what we think is a fair request to make if she's going to participate. But regardless, it is going to go forward because we have agreed that some response needs to be made. And so that's going to happen when we announced it on December 15th.
Yeah. So basically what he's saying is they will have that conversation. Just Candace won't be a part of it. They'll probably do one of those, cardboard cutout of Candace's and be like, hey, how come Candace not here? How come she's not talking about it? They're crashing out hard. I have one more clip to play. And this one is going to bring everything full circle. When we say that Israel was involved in this, that they had a hand in whatever went down, there's a good reason for why Candace is saying this and why no one knew or cared about Charlie as much as she did.
I'm being contacted by a lot of people that are telling me that just within 48 hours before Charlie passed away, his top Jewish donors were pulling funding from him, demanding that Charlie take their name off of the building that they had donated to Turning Point. I guess I can figure out who that is, how many people could have donated a building. And then once Charlie was killed, they said, never mind, put it back on the building. Okay. Charlie himself had alluded to a tremendous loss of money coming in. And we'll speak about that more. More people are going to come out with information. This is all inevitable. Okay. And I'll also point you in this direction. You guys remember Bibi recently was on a PR blitz, despite the fact that he was, fighting this 96,000 front war because Israel didn't do nothing. Okay. He was doing a ton of podcasts in America. He went on to Patrick Bet-David's podcast. He went.
Oof. What a murderer's row lineup. And let me tell you, of all the live stream podcast conversations that he went on, I mean, honestly, I can't really tell you which was which because it wasn't a podcast. It was a PR stunt on every single one of them. But these Nelk boys, holy shit. I mean, they were prepped, told what to say, went right along with it. And I often wonder how dude bros get to that point. I really do. It's like they got bashed in the head one too many times, but it's true. Very interesting point about to be made.
Went on to Brandon Tatum's podcast. He went on to the Nelk Boys podcast. Anybody find it weird he didn't do Charlie Kirk's show?
No, I don't find it weird at all because we are past the stage of weird. We are now in the, yes, that makes total sense now. Completely. Notice how this is never talked about, ever, by anybody. When he came on his podcast tour, he went on all of these channels, but he didn't go on Charlie's. No one has a bigger channel there or a bigger influence amongst Christian Zionists than him. Who the hell are these guys? Who the hell is Officer Tatum? Who the hell are the Nelk boys? Who the hell is PBD? When you really get right down to it, who are they? They're just loudmouths. They don't have any real impact on social maneuvering, economic maneuvering, electoral maneuvering. Charlie does in a very profound way. So why then did Satanyahu Milikowski not go on with Charlie Kirk? That's a big fucking question that's never been answered. To suggest that their relationship was hunky-dory. The first person on social media of prominence to make a statement regarding Charlie's death was Milikowski. I'm telling you, it all adds up. All of it. You know what I'm talking about.
Homie very quickly told us that Charlie was implied that Charlie was penning love letters to him in May. I just love you so much. It's amazing. They were so close. The boys just hits him up like, hey, I know we're fighting this 97,000 front war because we're always the victims, but do you want to just come and maybe stay at my place for the weekend here in Israel? Like, that's the vibe that Bibi was rushing to present to the media. So why didn't you do Charlie Kirk's show? I'll leave that as a question for you guys. Common sense. Common sense, okay? I don't like small lies. And remember, Bibi started this. I am responding to his shamelessness, shameless misrepresentation of what Charlie was going through and what Charlie was saying. Because, and I want to be clear, to me right now, it feels, and I'm using a corporate term here, a bit like a hostile takeover, okay? Charlie builds the company organically on the basis of Charlie and Charlie's honest ideas.
Okay, so I finally have to criticize Candace. I have to, because we have to be 100% honest about this. There is nothing organic about Turning Point USA, and a lot of Charlie's ideas are highly questionable, Candace. When the billionaire class, the Zio billionaire class, funds your organization, Charlie was immensely talented. I have never, ever said otherwise. And you could go back into the archives, the rare occasional clip that we did talking about Charlie Kirk 2, 3, 4 years ago. I never questioned his talent, ever. But to suggest that it ever would have gotten to the level that it got to because of his sheer capacity to be a thought leader, no chance. A lot of people are thought leaders. A lot of people speak well. A lot of people are charismatic. A lot of people cultivate audiences. You don't do what he did without a lot of help and a lot of money and a lot of powerful influence. That's how it happened. And in terms of his positions on a number of issues, let's just say that we vehemently disagree. But there's my criticism of Candace on that point. She's got a little more to say.
Suddenly, that company's got a lot of money, and Charlie's honest ideas are starting to change or maybe add more color. And now he's getting financial threats. He's being called names. He increasingly, he's being told who and what he's allowed to speak to, and he's taking a stance. He's taking a stand privately up to these people, and then it doesn't matter anymore because Charlie's dead, and those very same people who were pressing him are now doing, like, very quickly trying to set in stone that, oh, Charlie, essentially the energy is Charlie died for Israel. He's just one of us. Nobody ask any more questions. That is literally untrue, and we're not going to allow it, okay? It's just not true.
What I believe is that she is a fighter for truth. She has an agenda. She also has money. But I do believe that she is on a mission now. She's on a mission to break the Zio state because they broke her by taking her friend. As I said, sometimes you fly a little too close to the sun. And I'm not here. Again, David, anybody else, Jen, I don't need to fucking hear it about me defending Charlie Kirk. I'm not defending Charlie Kirk. I'm using Charlie Kirk as a vessel to get the change that we need. That's the way you're supposed to do it. The other people want you to forget that Charlie was assassinated and just move on and continue as if business as usual is the way things will continue. No, it won't. Things are changing substantially, if not outright revolutionarily. That's what's coming. And we all have a role to play in making sure that that is the case. Now, we may not have anywhere near the reach that somebody like Candace has, but we'll use what we have to help push that change along. That's our job. I hope that in some small way that we've been able to accomplish that so far. But we've got a hell of a lot more work to do. And I cannot thank any of you enough for the support that you have provided tonight. On most nights, we got up to almost 1,000. I think we got to like 950 live viewers tonight. You guys have been fantastic. And so to that, I just want to say thank you, as we are about to pass 93,000 subscribers. And if you haven't yet, which we would really appreciate if you would, make sure that you smash that like button. Make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you share this stream. Make sure you're subscribed on Rumble, on Instagram, on TikTok, on X. But also, if you have decided to contribute this evening, we want to say thank you again, because you guys are great. And there have been several more super chats that have come in as a result. And we want to give you guys a big shout out for doing just that. Wanker Tanker, great to see you. Thank you for the $5. Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro wrote a nearly 1,400-page book on how Zio ideology is not Judaism, and Jesus sure ain't coming back for genocide. Well, Wanker, if you have not seen our interview with Rabbi Shapiro, we recommend you check it out. Rabbi Shapiro is everything that Rabbi Schmutzy isn't. Know the difference. Agezin82 with the $10. Candace Owens has legitimate reasons to be hated, like saying George Floyd's death was justified, or her transvestigation of Bridget Macron, but doesn't care about lawsuits because she married a billionaire. Well, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but I know he's very wealthy and powerful. And yes, that's why things are a means to an end. This is why one can disagree about certain moves. I haven't done my segment or my expose, if you will, on the Macrons yet, but I'm going to do everything in my power to get to that next weekend. So bear that in mind. The trans issue, to me, that's the last, almost like the last thing on the list. There's a lot more to Bridget Macron and what they do over in France than even that is of concern to me. Brian Burns, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for the $2. Hello, Jen and Peter. Candace is a U.S. patriot. I would agree. Alexander, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate you, my friend. Gezin82 with the $5. Breaking Points can't afford a lawsuit. Candace Owens can. She married a billionaire. Again, I don't know if he's a billionaire. I know he's a wealthy man. And yes, that may be true. But again, what lawsuit was Breaking Points going to have to deal with? The State Department is going to come after them because James Lee was identifying the fact that Kash Patel married or is dating a honeypot? Couldn't be more obvious based on their actions. Noah Linden with the $5. Fuentes recently said America should have an empire and invade Venezuela and other Latin American countries. We shouldn't count him as an ally. You're damn right we shouldn't. Libertarian Social Democrat with the $4.99. If Nick was in charge of the immigration policy, I still think he would not be that evil and mean-spirited like Stephen Miller. Nick racism is shock jock. Well, some of it is, and some of it is just downright hateful. There is no getting around that point. Matthew Werner with the $10. Thank you very much. Let's not forget that Nick is a fake Catholic and closeted gay man. Whatever he is, he's a jerk off. Let's just leave it at that. Monica Soler with the $4.99. He is a child. He had a chance and he blew it tonight. I would agree. What he did with Candace, that's going to hurt him. Monica Soler with the $1.99. He's a paid confidential informant. He might be a Fed. Again, we don't know, but the actions always speak louder than words. That can't be disputed. Gezin82 with the $2. Fuentes is a Teutonic twink showing arse. You said it, I didn't say it. Lemon Lou with the $5. Thank you very much. Nick has peaked. He can't form alliances. I think his ego's too big. He will not check it at the door. And the fact that Candace is lapping him at this point, so is Tucker. But Tucker had him on, so he's got to be careful with that one. But there's no question that there is a lot of immature jealousy going on here. Mind wide open. Thank you for the $2. I almost thought Fuentes was on the level. Not now. Hey, truth is, honesty has been saying the entire evening, honesty is the best policy. Gezin82 with the $2 again. Nick, loser maxing. I would say that is pretty loser maxing in his own way. Alexander with the 20. I mean, I see NOK, but I'm not. I know we've had this before, but I forget where it's coming from. But thank you so much for whatever that amount is. Candace is in it for the truth right about Macron. Maybe she is. That's why they're coming at her so hard. There's probably, I always say, even if you fly too close to the sun, depending on how one reacts, it's usually a giveaway. Mahmoud Salah with the $2. Erica is as fake as snow in the Caribbean. Well, that snow is pretty fake. Ivory Tart, thank you very much for becoming a YouTube member, and thank you for having such an adorable profile picture. Anybody who has dogs is always welcome on our channel. That's the #1 rule. And if she wasn't a sweetheart enough, Ivory Tart, thank you for the 5 Revolutionary Change memberships. We really appreciate it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the live stream. What the L? Thank you for becoming a YouTube member or becoming a sub, and an adorable profile picture as well. Kind of looks like Lou a little bit, Jen. So one more time, we appreciate you all being here. Make sure, if you haven't already, and yes, dogs are the best. And as Bill Murray once said, I trust a dog. I do not trust any person who doesn't like a dog, but I trust any dog that doesn't like a person. Words to live by. 1,000%. One more super chat. Mind wide open. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Really appreciate it, my friend. So one more time, for those of you that are here this evening, just want to say thank you again. If you haven't subscribed, please make sure that you do. Please make sure that you smash that like button. Please make sure that you share the stream. We want to get this out there to as many people as possible. Right now, we are at 92,979 subscribers. We are about to pass 93,000. We are just over 7,000 away from that special plaque that us 100K people, or those 100K people get. We're not part of it yet, but we're getting closer. So with that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. I thank you all. I appreciate you all. Good night. Free Palestine. And we'll see you Monday.